The advent of global digital currencies, the fact that a liability of the Federal Reserve, a dollar liability of the Federal Reserve, can exist as a digital asset that can effectively exist anywhere the internet exists. The fact that a liability of the People's Bank of China can exist as a digital currency, where effectively any internet computer in the world can now settle directly with the People's Bank of China, that hasn't been anticipated. We had a kind of superstructure, the Bretton Woods structure, the SWIFT structure. We had this sort of superstructure, and now, these sort of transactions and currencies can just happen directly over the internet. I wonder if some of this leads us into rethinking ideas of global currencies. The idea of synthetic global digital currencies that are composed of, say, a Chinese yuan, a digital euro, a digital dollar, and if that becomes more palpable over.
I think this could be a long time. I think this does have what I might call the Esperanto problem. Esperanto might have been a better language than any of the other languages. It might well be that everybody learning Esperanto really was a better thing, but people were kind of pretty attached to what they were attached to, and it was never quite able to get off the ground and get to a critical mass. And so I'm sure there'll be a variety of kinds of innovation, but I'd be kind of surprised, and I've been surprised many times before, if we got to some kind of global digital currency that was what people thought in terms of in my lifetime. Yeah. I could be wrong. I think we will see a ton of innovation that will work through stable coins and that will permit cross-border exchange with more ease. But at the end of the day, I think the power of the nation state is pretty strong, and finance is pretty fundamental. So I wouldn't expect it all to be swept away.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the model is you had all these phone companies and they were really powerful and they were kind of central. And then you sort of had Skype, and they didn't have a business anymore, and nobody could mess with people's ability to communicate.
Right.
I'd be surprised if that was the story of the next 10 or 20 years in financial innovation with that degree of starkness, but I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we've tracked really closely, and I've spent a lot of time both in China and know the folks who are building their digital currency. I think there is this desire for China to play a much larger role in the world economy, and they obviously are. There has been a desire to have the yuan and play a larger role in trade and settlement. And I think there's also been a desire to have effectively a financial system that's not entirely controlled by the West and SWIFT. And with the development of the Chinese digital currency, effectively they've created a model where a household, a firm, a nation state can kind of directly transact and settle with China over the internet. And you don't need SWIFT. You don't need any of the regulations that control that. You can just bilaterally over the internet start to achieve that. And obviously there's sort of the infrastructure overlay of the Belt and Road and the kind of growth aspirations there. But, I wonder whether we do see a digital currency native monetary systems that start to compete. We've had
you might be right, and it's certainly a possibility. I think that all the things you said about China were true. I think the more fundamental thing is that they want to control the lives of their citizens including the financial lives of their citizens, including the ability of their citizens to do what their citizens want to do, which is to take their cash out of the country. And I think that a system that doesn't, I think a system that freely enables moving wealth and resources out of the country is going to be a system that makes them deeply nervous. And I think a system that is so restricted that it isn't possible to do that isn't going to be much of a global digital currency. And so I'm not seeing this with nearly the salience that the crypto community is, I have to confess.
Yeah, I think that that's right. I mean, the not opening the capital account and not allowing RMB to trade freely and liquid and so on is sort of the gating, major gating piece here. But now the mechanism to allow RMB to have global reach is they sort of built it, and all they needed was the internet. So it does even within the constraints that the intense constraints that they put around it and the control structure that they put around it, it does at least create a way to build an RMB denominated set of economic activity that does not depend on a dollar settled SWIFT system. And so
there may be some of that, and I in a different context, it's been my view that the U.S. needs to scale back its abuse of the SWIFT system to pursue its more parochial foreign policy objectives. Mm-hmm. I think if you want to operate a trusted public utility, you can derive some private benefit from the fact that you're operating the public utility. But if you try to derive too much, people will no longer trust you to operate the public utility.
Yeah.
And I think the U.S. has been pushing that margin in the way it's made use of the SWIFT system.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, is that going to play out, that we're going to keep pushing it and not take feedback from bad responses to the point where things are likely to tip towards a Chinese digital currency taking on a large part of global commerce? I wouldn't say impossible, but that wouldn't be where I'd be betting.